Hi, and I never normally say hi. That's very strange. Hello, and welcome everybody. I'm very pleased to be joined by someone that I spoke to. We've just realised that we originally met in 2011, which
Yes,
I think, Sandra, was probably when you were quite new to, I was going to say new to the game, of Slimpod. So welcome, Sandra Roycroft-Davis.
thank you. Thank
So
you.
after well, it's been quite a while that Sandra has been doing, and she'll explain about Slimpod, which is a weight loss program. But she's now just brought out a book called The Weight's Over. Very good title. And it's all about taking back control of your weight. And it's what's interesting is, as Sandra said, it's really impressive. It's gone straight to a Sunday Times #1 bestseller. So well done, Sandra.
Thank you.
Um,
It was actually number five, Katrina. Just
or was it
yeah,
like, oh,
just so that just because I don't want the number ones telling me that we're being factually incorrect. But I'm very happy with number five.
well, I think just to get on the list is pretty darn impressive. So well done. So what, Sandra, what I'd like to do is if you'd just like to give a little bit of background of, of about the book, and then I want to ask about the elephant in the room. Why have a book when we can have a weight loss jab? But before we get on to that, can we talk about you first of all?
Sure. So, I'm going to go back to childhood because that's where it all started. Both the program, but mostly my book. And so when I was a child, I was a very overweight child, and it affected my self-esteem hugely. I was bullied in the playground and yeah, it just it zapped. I didn't know that at the time, but I didn't have any confidence, and I just it was honestly it was that experience that kind of stayed with me for my entire life, right up until now in many ways. I mean, I have done everything, including write a book to counteract it, and I'll whiz through that story, but it just the thing at the time was my parents owned a sweet shop, well, a grocery shop, but it had sweets, and I was always chocolate was the reward for me doing my homework and to be kept quiet.
Mm.
And so it's well known within kind of, my story that I was a bit of a chocolate addict, and then that became a major hazard as I went through life because chocolate was always my go-to thing to feel better about myself because of the whole self-esteem stuff, and that was all about not being good enough, and various things that come out of those early experiences. And so in my 20s I started on a it was really a voyage of self-discovery, but I got fascinated by the brain. I made a decision that I didn't want to be held back by my low self-esteem, and just working out how I was going to counteract that. And so I went on this yeah, it was a journey really of being fascinated by how the brain worked, and how, more to the point, how you get over um, food addictions, etc., like that. Because chocolate was my nemesis, and actually still is in many ways, but I am in control of it now. So hence the title of the book. But then I was following a different career for years, and was totally unfulfilled. And then about about 20 years ago, decided that I wanted to just dig deeper into my passion, which was the brain and neuroscience. And that's when everything changed in my life. And I became a therapist and I became a coach. And I started off in Harley Street. Well, I was doing it elsewhere. I was working elsewhere and then went to Harley Street. And just found that so many people were coming into me for weight loss because of emotional associations with food, really. And that's really when I could see the full impact of the dieting industry and how yo-yo dieting has such a psychological effect on people, not only the whole body side of things, but the whole mind body its association is just really, really really affected by yo-yo dieting, plus ultra processed foods, and the reward center in the brain. So if we park that a moment, I've been I suppose I've been thinking about writing a book for many, many years, but didn't have it was the vulnerability from, this little girl still in me from childhood, and I can run my program, and it's become very, very successful. But I never actually got round to conquering the demons to write a book. And then about 2.5 years ago, a publisher came to me. Lots of publishers have been to me for, over the years, but then a publisher came to me and said, "Look, Sandra, the world needs your book. The world needs to know about all this." And uh, as much as I fought it off, there was something inside me that was saying, "Yes, actually, there is." So the voice, the positive voice, took over from the negative voice, and also, and it was a crazy thing because everything that I have feared for years and years was 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 just I just became very vulnerable because I just thought, oh my goodness, what if there's a negative review? And I was just scared of what the outcome was going to be. But I needn't have been, because
No.
it's just been amazing. And it's really, the book is a message of hope, and one of belief, because it's all wrapped up in my personal story, but so's the program, really.
But that's interesting because the book it's only at the end that you mention you, and I would say the book is very informative and it's very much this is it's very practical. This is how you can take control, and I think that's what people want to hear. How do they take control? And obviously, and all the way through the book, you've got some great stories of real people who are very genuinely, they're not suddenly bikini babe or whatever you might want to, they're realistic ordinary people who've worked hard but are so positive about
Yeah,
your program. And I'm actually sort of wondering from listening to hearing you is that, obviously what you suffered as a child was trauma, the
yeah.
trauma of the playground, which does stay with people. And, and it sounds like that trauma, you've allowed a lot of it, if not all of it, to be released by acknowledging it, looking at it, accepting it, and pushing it down into a book.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, and it's all part of what I've learnt, personally. There's been lots of things that have. I mean, I didn't even appear on a live, a Facebook Live or a Zoom or anything before COVID. You won't see any live things of me because I hated the camera still. That was another. So, and that happens to so many people who have been, overweight. They just don't like cameras, and it was me. And I had no confidence to do that until COVID. And then I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to be on there now. People have got to see. I've got to encourage people, and it's just got to happen. And so, yeah, that was another thing that that I bashed through. Um, and but I think, so dieting really does, the whole yo-yo thing really does zap people's confidence because they feel that they're failures when they just can't shift, the weight long term. That's the problem. You can always, I mean, there's, I suppose, I mean, I've had 350,000 people go through the Slimpod program now,
Wow.
um, and I would say probably, oh, there must be about 70% of those, I would say, who in the community, our private Facebook group, and there's 65,000 in there. Um, I would say the majority of them would say that they've lost the same 3 stone over and over again over 30 years. And literally, that's what happens. 95% of people don't lose weight long term, and it just becomes the most frustrating thing ever. But it's because you're fighting your own brain. You have to follow all these things consciously. From childhood, our habits, our eating habits, all of our habits are stored in our subconscious. And so literally you are fighting your own subconscious when you are trying to diet because you can't change your habit. It's a big effort to change your habits. And
Mm,
so that's what the Slim Pod program does. But also the reason I wrote the book was because I need people to be aware of this. You get to a certain point and you just feel that you're a failure and that's it. That's the way, you don't think there's anything else you can do. Uh, and you literally, and this is absolutely a fact. You become hypnotized by that. It's called a cognitive loop or feedback loop or memory loop. There's lots of different ways of describing it, but it's a feedback loop that goes on in your brain that just keeps you in this, in this place. And what I my mission is to make people aware so that they can actually, bash through that feedback loop and stop the cycle. Because if you're just constantly doing what you've always done, you get what you've always got. And that's it. You don't have to get what you always got. That's the thing.
mm. So the book, what's the difference between the book and your program? Because obviously in the book, all of your examples are people who've been on the program,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really say what the program is,
No,
or I
because
didn't notice
yeah,
it.
because I didn't want it to be a marketing thing for the program.
Yes.
I really the book is all about giving people hope.
Mm,
It is really about trying to explain to people that they've handed over their personal authority to too many things for too long, and now it's time to understand that actually you have all the resources within you to do this by yourself. It's not an easy process. That's why I go into what I go into in the book, and so, but it is more of a kind of an let's just open up your mind to what could be possible and not have you stuck. And that's what I'm trying to get over in the book for people who are not on the program, but for people who are on my program, it just dives deeper into things, and they're finding it invaluable as well. But the whole of the first section of the book is actually a survey of 4,000 of my Slim Podders who are obviously former dieters. Um, and it is it's their top negative psychological effects of dieting. And the top one was self-sabotage and falling off the wagon. And all of these become habits. You know, self-sabotage becomes a habit. It doesn't have to be a habit. You don't actually have to self-sabotage the whole time. And there's addiction to the scales was another one, obsession over food. And the food obsession thing brings me nicely onto the jabs, actually.
I
Um,
wondered if you'd remember that because I was thinking, oh, we didn't go back to it.
no, we're going back to it now. Um, because the fascinating thing with the jabs, obviously, is that yes, it's all the rage, and that's fine. But all the clinical trials have said that you have to have lifestyle changes if you're going to keep the weight off. And we know that the majority of people are putting the weight back on in a year. And so I was at a kind of a seminar a few weeks ago where an obesity professor who's actually was raving about the jabs, he was talking about dieting and how 95% of people don't keep the weight off. And yet he also said that once you come off the jabs, you put the weight back on. So a question that I asked him is, okay, well, how different is he thought everybody needed to stop dieting. And I said, well, how different is it? How different are the jabs from dieting if you have to stay on both, like, for life,
Mm,
if you're going to keep the weight off? Because that's what it's all about. The Holy
mm,
Grail is keeping weight off for life.
mm,
Um, and it's about lifestyle change because you can't do anything without doing that. So, or you can't do anything successfully. And it's about mindset change. And so, anyway, it was an interesting one because we have a lot of people doing both. And so it's not an elephant in a room at all, actually, because where has it gives me the greatest of pleasure to if people are on jabs or are thinking about doing it, but really worried about what will happen when they come off because it is well known
mm,
and you're spending a fortune. It's the most expensive thing you can do apart from bariatric surgery. Um, and you're spending £200, 150 to £200 a month, as opposed to, anything else. A diet would be 9.99, so it wouldn't be too much. It's not it's such a financial drain. But the thing is that we know through research that the biggest fear that people have when they're on the jabs is about coming off them and what's going to
mm,
happen. And so many people are doing Slimpod and the jabs. I suppose to accelerate their weight loss, people do Slimpod. Most people are doing Slimpod on its own because it works on its own perfectly well. But some people who get frustrated at the time that it's taking to lose weight, or people are joining us so that they can get the mindset change as well. And coming off is easier because you're retraining your brain at the same time. Because that's the bit that isn't happening. Yes, the jabs cuts down the food noise or the food obsession.
mm,
Absolutely, because it goes into that, it works with that part of the brain. But it only does that for as long as you're on it. And again, for most people, it won't continue, and that is the difficult part.
mm,
The Slim Pod cuts down food noise as well. You don't become obsessed with you stop being obsessed with food, you stop getting the cravings and all the rest of it. So yeah, so the big mission really for me is to help people to understand that change is possible. You can take control of your mind because that's the thing that everybody seems to lose, that they feel as though they've lost control of food. Um, and absolutely that, because when you have become, or when you're dieting for years and years, the focus, food comes to the top of your mind. That's all you think about day and night. Your next meal, where's that coming from? Um, and what my process does is put food to the back of your mind, so you're really not thinking about it at all. Or much. I mean, we've all got to eat, but you're just not thinking about it.
Yeah, and I didn't know that food noise was a thing until only sort of recently.
Same here.
And then suddenly you hear about it, and it's sort of, for me, the penny sort of really dropped why it's so difficult for people because of this, the food noise that's going on. So
Yeah.
it's not really, everyone knows what they're meant to eat, but it is the food noise that's the problem. And I think what's interesting about your book is that it's a diet book, but it's not a diet book because there's no standard diet. There's no mention of food and what you should eat, and or other than the fact, just be careful of ultra processed and things like that. But it's quite interesting. It's a diet book, but it's not a diet book. And I think that and it is interesting. I could see exactly how you're saying that it could fit in so well with people that are taking a jab, but getting concerned about, I think money is a big problem because it is, as you said, it's ever so expensive. And, I don't think anybody wants to be on it full time. So, okay, how do you come off it and don't go back straight into that cycle of food noise, putting the weight on,
Yeah.
becoming a failure?
And it also, I mean, the jabs do become addictive because it is quick weight loss. You're losing the food noise. You think you're in heaven, obviously, unless you're having side effects, which a lot of people do. And I don't blame. I've got absolutely nothing against the jabs, apart from the fact that people need to be aware that they're only as, can you afford it? Number one, can you afford to be on it for life? Because that's what the professor said, and that's what is happening. Can you afford to be on it for life, or would you prefer to deal with your mind, deal with the fact that that you can retrain your brain, and then not have the fear and not, you know,
Mhm.
and then live a normal life with food, because that's what I'm all about, being a normal eater.
And do you know, and it's funny, that's what somebody said to me. They said, "Oh my God, for the first time in my life, I realized what normal, one always sort of has to do that with what normal people don't think about food all the time."
Yeah,
And I think that's where the jabs have given people that release or
yeah,
relief from it, and suddenly realize what normal people, you eat and sometimes you don't want to eat, and that's fine.
absolutely. And you
Mm.
know what? If you look at our Trustpilot reviews, we've got more than 3,500 5-star, I think,
Wow.
last time I looked. You'll see exactly the same thing. That it's just cut out food noise, and I feel normal. That's the normal. That is coming through loud and clear, because
Mm.
that's the only thing, I think that's the main thing that people want to feel, is being in control of food, being normal, and obviously, lose weight and feel good about themselves.
Well, Sandra, thank you so much for coming in, coming to talk to us about your book. And we'll certainly put links up to your website with your program in. But just to be very clear that this book stands completely separate from the Slimpod program,
Yep,
because
absolutely.
there's so much information in there to support and help actually everything that we've discussed.
Mm.
Absolutely everything that you have said, I read that in the book. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and there's it's been an Amazon bestseller of about 6 categories, but there's lots of reviews on Amazon, so people can read and understand a bit more about the book, really,
Yeah.
about how it work, how it'll help because yeah, that's my aim, is just to help people understand that uh, that it's just not. We get so many people saying, "Oh, this is my last chance to lose weight." It's not. It just it just pains me. I just feel so sad when I hear that, because yeah, they think there's no other way than dieting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much once again.
You're
And very
welcome.
nice to see you after all this time.
I know, amazing.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you.
Thanks.